is Making Stitches. This time I'm joined by Michelle Greaves, one half of the team behind a brand new yarn and textile festival coming to Manchester next year.
At the moment, we have a lot of our kind of pre-existing exhibitors from the yarn festivals have signed up because they trust us. But we're in talks with a lot of people who are sewing and embroidery and other crafts. And we have some of those signed up already. So we've got a lot of local pattern and textile artists and designers. We're also having guilds as well. Again, reaching out to those and getting arranged so they can have the space to put on displays, textile artists to put on displays as well. So it's a mixture of a marketplace for indie companies, and that is our focus as well, is keeping it focused on smaller businesses, artists to inspire you. We've got workshops on as well that cover quite a range of skills. So again, there's embroidery, there's crochet, there's drop spindle, there's felting, there's all kinds of things in there, and demonstrations as well.
Hello and welcome to Making Stitches. I'm Lindsay. I'm a lifelong crafter and I love hearing people share their stories. In this podcast, I like to speak to creative folk about what they do and share it with you. Today I'm sharing a chat I had with Michelle Greaves, who's one half of the team behind a brand new and exciting festival coming to Manchester City Centre next year called TexStyle. TexStyle is a fresh celebration of all things textile, from knitting and crochet to sewing, weaving and sustainable fashion, bringing together makers, artists and enthusiasts for a vibrant weekend of inspiration and creativity. Michelle and her mum Carole have been hosting craft events for a number of years now, including the Buxton, Cumbria and Stafford wool gatherings. Carole has been involved in the knitting and yarn industry for decades, and Michelle has a background in fashion design. I chatted to Michelle about the story behind the festival, what visitors can look forward to, and her hopes for what TexStyle will offer to the crafting community. She started by telling me a bit about herself.
I am a web designer by day. So I work as full-time. I have a full-time job as a web designer. But what kind of got me into that was learning how to do web design on the side for the events that we've been running since 2013. Before that, I have a degree in fashion design. So I did that a long time ago now. Which is what led me to this side of the Pennines. So I did grow up on the Manchester side of the Pennines, but I'm now in Leeds and have been all my adult life. So yes, but then I graduated at the time of the big financial crash when jobs were scarce, and like I said, retrained as a web designer. And in 2013, my mum decided that she wanted to try her hand at running a yarn festival. There were nowhere near as many at the time. I think Woolfest had probably been going for quite a few years at that point, and that was like the biggest, and Wonderful Wales, and we started the same year as Yarndale. So it's still quite a new concept, and we were much, much smaller than those. But yes, and then we've been running them ever since.
So that's the wool gathering in Buxton, Cumbria and Stafford, is it?
That was Bakewell, which was our first one. So Mum had actually done, so she's always been involved in wool and knitting. So at the time she was an indie dyer, and it was when indie dyeing was still quite a new thing as well. She had attended more of a craft festival, but it was like a craft festival that had a focus on wool at the venue. And then the person that had run it decided that she didn't want to do it again. And Mum went, this is a fantastic venue. It was at the agricultural centre, so obviously the focus there is on agriculture and sheep especially, and she decided that yes, she would take over running that, and that's where Bakewell Wool Gathering was born.
Wow, and then led on to other things.
Yes, and Bakewell was for many years, it was our only event, but yeah, I learned so much from running that. So I'd already dabbled a lot in web design, but that was obviously learning how to run an event website, especially with eventually doing ticket booking and all that side of things, and a lot of marketing as well. So I've learned print design from doing this, from doing like flyers and posters and the brochures, and then a lot of social media marketing as well. As that's obviously evolved over the years. Started with Facebook, and now there's Instagram, and there's a lot of video, and you just have to learn as you go. Just this is now where people are finding out about events. Okay, how do I get people interested in this event using that technique?
Well, certainly the craft community is very active on social media, isn't it? So, yeah.
And I think it's been a bonus to us, absolutely, because there's a lot that you can do organically, that if you can get the name out to a few people, they will talk about it, and especially that have had a good time, they will talk about it. So we were always running events on quite a low budget, especially a low marketing budget, but we didn't really need to spend a lot of money because people talked about us. You know, the craft community talk amongst each other and go, we went to this, we had a really good time, really enjoyed it, and that's how you get your reputation and how you grow your visitor base. And that's exactly what we did. And I think, not to sound too big-headed, but we did get a really good reputation from both exhibitors and visitors for Bakewell. It was a small show. We were always limited for space, and we never had the visitors of some of the big shows. But the people who came always had really, really good feedback about how much they enjoyed it. And I think for some people, a smaller show like that isn't as overwhelming as well. It can be nice to have something you can do that isn't like, this is a full day commitment. And then from there, we've added other events on.
Yeah, no, that's...
So we started Buxton Wool Gathering in 2019. And again, that was based on the venue, just such a beautiful venue. And then Cumbria, after Wool Fest, announced that they weren't coming back after lockdowns. And somebody who was local to the area recommended that venue to us and said, this would be perfect for a festival. And then, like, this year was our first year when we moved Bakewell to Stafford again, because we'd outgrown the venue and we'd had some venue issues. So we've moved to a much bigger venue. So all of it just happens organically.
Fantastic. Yes, word of mouth and trust within people is you can't buy that, can you? So it's...
Yeah, absolutely not. And I'm so happy that we started small, because you learn from doing small shows. Like I said, we did Stafford this year, which was it was the first year there, and it was a much bigger venue. But we foresaw all potential problems and we planned for it, and everything from our perspective, went really smoothly. So... And if we'd been going in and it was our first event, it would not have worked that well. There were things that we were like, this is what happened at this previous event. This is potentially what could go wrong, and we had contingencies in place to make sure it all worked.
Fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like you've learned on the job, very much so.
Yeah, very much so. And that's why they're similar with TexStyle. We've been umming and ahhing over doing something like this for several years, actually. Again, 2019, we were kind of thinking we wanted to do something that wasn't purely a wool-based event. But it was, again, it's taking the leap to doing a bigger show and having the experience to go, right, what could go wrong and how do we stop that, and what have we learned and how do we apply that to doing a bigger show.
Yeah, so TexStyle, as you mentioned, is the big event that you're working on at the moment for next spring in March, isn't it? As a Manchester resident, I was so thrilled when I saw your new account pop up on Instagram talking about this brand new festival coming to the old GMEX, now Manchester Central, in the centre of Manchester, which as a teenager teenager, I can remember going for education fairs and for various different events there. And it's a huge, great big venue. And it's just been crying out, I think, for a craft, a textiles, a yarn type festival. And you're the people to do it.
It's the exact same for us. That I remember going with Mum when I was a teenager to events at it will always be the GMEX to me. It's a bit like the arena. The arena will always be the MEN to me because it was that for so many years. But yeah, so we went to mixed craft events there that I don't think run anymore. But that was where I went, and there were textile crafts represented, and that's where I picked up. So this is where I was obviously, before I went to university, was interested in sewing and was learning a lot about sewing and pattern drafting, but also just being fascinated by like cross stitch and embroidery and things like that, and getting cross stitch patterns to take home and do, just because it was like that was everywhere, and just being like, this is something that I can make, you know, I can have a picture at the end of it and frame it. So yes, and that's the feedback we've had from a lot of people, is that Manchester has been missing out on any kind of event like this. And part of it, I think, is it's a commitment. Anybody that starts off a show like this, it is a commitment, and there's a big cost up front for the venue hire. And we didn't, even though obviously I kind of had that nostalgia of going to the GMEX, we didn't just go in and go, we'll use that automatically. We looked at a number of different venues, but the GMEX was the one that, or Manchester Central was the one that in the end just felt right, because it's right in the centre of town, and it's one big open space. It's super easy to get to, whether you're driving or using public transport. So yeah, that's why we went with it in the end. We're not using the whole venue because we're not biting off more than we can chew. But you know, it's very much let's make the first year a success and then see if we can grow from there.
Absolutely. So what was the catalyst then? You said that people had been talking to you about it for ages, but what was it that just thought, you know, let's just go ahead and do it?
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was probably 2019 when we originally started talking about doing something that wasn't just a yarn festival, but that covered all textile crafts. I genuinely can't remember what it was that kind of prompted us to start looking at that point, apart from probably thinking that there are a lot of yarn festivals and there are some big stitch festivals, but they're obviously in very particular locations. Obviously there's Harrogate and Ali Pally. I think there's a couple at the NEC, but there's nothing in the Northwest. And I think from the ones that we had attended, a lot of them have quite a very specific focus each. So they'll have a quilting focus, which is fantastic if you like quilting. Although a lot of them are very sewing heavy, but then it kind of felt like certain crafts got a little bit neglected. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about that. That's whether there's the people that can actually attend the events. But I think that was our intention, that I'm trying to make sure there was a really, really good blend for everybody, that it isn't just one focus on, you know, like a really heavy focus on one thing and then everything else is a bit of an afterthought. And that is definitely our intention with this, is trying to make sure there's a good blend, especially because we know that a lot of people, if you do one thing, you probably do a bit of others as well.
Very true.
Yeah, so we started thinking about it. Then 2020 happened and 2021, and that was when we looked at doing Cumbria wool gathering instead. So it was focusing on what made more sense at that time. And then eventually getting to the point of, let's come back to this idea, let's start looking at venues. And it felt like the right time, like we had the capacity at that point to really look into launching this.
Fantastic. So what can visitors to TexStyle 2026 expect?
So, like I said, a really good blend of the different crafts. So at the moment, we have a lot of our kind of pre-existing exhibitors from the yarn festivals have signed up because they trust us. But we're in talks with a lot of people who are sewing and embroidery and other crafts. and we have some of those signed up already. So we've got a lot of local pattern and textile artists and designers. We're also having we're having guilds as well. Again, reaching out to those and getting them arranged so they can have the space to put on displays, textile artists to put on displays as well. So it's a mixture of a marketplace for indie companies, and that is our focus as well, is keeping it focused on smaller businesses, not nothing that you can, and most of them you can buy on the internet, but nothing that you could just buy on the internet. It's things that you want to see in person and interact with the person who's created that, who has designed that and put thought into it, and being able to speak to them and see it all in person. And yes, artists to inspire you. We've got workshops on as well, that cover quite a range of skills. So again, there's embroidery, there's crochet, there's drop spindle, there's felting, there's all kinds of things in there. And demonstrations as well. So there will be people sat there, like we've got Manchester tufting workshop. She'll be sat there with the tufting rugs, which you can have a go with. There'll be people who are doing weaving and spinning and all kinds of things that you can watch what they're doing, ask them questions, get involved. So we're hoping people come obviously with their usual interests, whether that is sewing, whether that is embroidery, but maybe they'll go away with a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of, actually, I've discovered something new. I've got something that I'd never even heard of, or something that had never been on my radar, and now I want to try that.
Yeah, that's the wonder of going to a festival like that, is you get exposed to new things, don't you? And new techniques, and before you know it, you're down a different rabbit hole.
Yes, exactly. And the danger is that will happen to me as well, and I don't have time to start thinking up new things.
Well, I was just wondering about that. I mean, have you continued with your, you said you had your first degree was in fashion design. Have you continued working in textiles in like your private life and as a hobby?
It's been more of a hobby. So I have done mad things like, I'll buy a second-hand armchair and reupholster it. Which is one of those things that you start off and then halfway through think, why didn't I just buy an armchair? But it's unique and nobody else will ever have that. Doing cross stitch as well, so I have actually picked that back up in the last couple of years. And at some point I will probably progress into doing a bit more embroidery, but cross stitch is something that I can just sit with the TV on and not have to think about what I'm doing too much. It's just a nice, when I do have time to do it, it's just a nice something that I can create without having to put too much thought into it.
Yeah, I think that's so important, isn't it? To have something that you can just switch off with, something that's repetitive and just helps you untangle your mind.
Yeah, I have tried learning to crochet, and I can do a basic chain, but again, I'm just so busy at the moment that I just haven't got the time for that. Eventually I will come back to that, but again, that's quite dangerous, because if I'm spending all this time at yarn festivals, at the moment I've got no excuse to buy anything when I'm there, and I don't need to open that door.
Well, at least if you ever do, you know lots of people who can help you out.
Exactly, yeah, but I don't need a house full of wool.
So, Michelle, tell me a bit about your mum, because obviously you're a mother and daughter outfit who are organising this between yourselves.
Yes, so Mum has been involved in knitting and crochet for as long as I can remember. And so that was her entry into the world, that when I was a child, she was a pattern tester for Serdar. She then became an indie dyer when that was still quite a new thing. When Woolfest was in its infant years, she was gone as an indie dyer when there weren't too many people doing that. And then she segued into running a local yarn shop. But as anybody who runs a local yarn shop knows, it can be a lot of work for not a lot of return. So that did close in early 2020. and she's put her full focus into running the events. But that was her entry into running the events as well. She was going to the handful of young festivals that were around, and that prompted her to look at starting up Bakewell Wool Gathering. So yeah, lifelong knitter, and she always likes to say about how she got told off at school for knitting in class.
That's dedication.
Yes, yeah. So she's obsessed with knitting. She does crochet as well. Taught me to sew. So a lot of my crafty side definitely comes from her.
Well, how nice that you can kind of pool your skills collectively and do this together.
Yeah, so we definitely split things down the middle. So I'm a lot better at the technical side of things, and she's better at the people side of things. So she tends to handle all of that. I tend to handle technical things, and it seems to work really well.
That's wonderful, and so nice that a mother and daughter can work on something together. That must be really special.
Yeah, and I never foresaw that happening. And we do. I left home at 18, so I've not lived with mum for a long time now. And we do live on opposite sides of the Pennines, so it's something that kind of does tie us together, and we are in constant contact.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And we do, for the most part, we do get along with it really well. We've never really had any major fallouts or even minor fallouts over the shows. It's just been his problem. Let's fix it.
That's fantastic. A great family business then.
Yes. And to be fair, as on the topic of it being a family business, we do have help from my brother and his partner as well. They muck in as much as they can. So it is very much a family affair.
That's great. I mean, this event is going to be quite big for two people to be kind of masterminding. Will you be calling on reinforcements then as you get closer to the day?
Yeah. And this is one of the fantastic things about it being in Manchester, is that because mum lives over there and my brother and his partner live over there as well, they can absolutely lend their support in that way, so they can get involved with helping with the setup on the day, and they will be present there. And we've also got other friends as well that will come and help volunteer their time to make sure everything runs smoothly. So although we're the only two that are doing the majority of the work, we're not doing it completely on our own, and we really appreciate the help that we get from other people.
What are you most excited about with this new project?
I think I'm most excited about the actual day. You know, when the event's running, it's always fun to see people when they're arriving and they're excited and they're full of enthusiasm. And being able to go around and see how exhibitors have set their spaces up. Once the show's running, you can relax into it. And being able to go around and like I said, and just look at the different spaces and the effort people put into setting up their spaces, the layouts and just the colour and texture and everything that's on display is just something it's inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, goodness me. I'm so looking forward to it. I can't tell you how giddy I felt when I discovered it was going to be happening. And I think it's something that has been very much lacking in this part of the world. Yeah. You do, I mean, it's a commitment to go to a festival anyway, because you've got your cost from actually getting in before you start actually spending the real cash when you get there, which is going to happen without a doubt. Very few people, I think, ever leave empty-handed from one of these festivals. But you know, prior to this, you'd have to get on a train or drive a very long way to get to something. So that's an additional cost. So yeah, it's I'm very grateful personally that this is going to be pretty much on my doorstep, 25 minutes away from my home, and it feels a real luxury and something that I'm very much looking forward to. So on behalf of me, thank you. And I'm sure on behalf of lots of other people in this part of the world, they're going to be very grateful.
That's absolutely the feedback we've had, is people going, I'm so excited, and it's so overdue that Manchester has has an event like this because it was the home of cotton.
It was.
So much of our city centre, even though the city centre has been, redeveloped and completely reshaped. If you don't go back for a couple of years, it's so incredible how much it can change in that time. But despite that, so much of the history is still there, and so much of it is the mills are still there. There might not be mills anymore. There might be apartments and things now. So yeah, it's such a strange thing that nobody has done this yet. And I know there have been smaller events. There is, I think it's the Antique Textile Fair that runs every year, which is run by the Textile Society, I believe. And a few years ago, there was an event in Urmston that ran for a couple of years, and we actually exhibited at that.
Yeah, the Great Northern Textile Show.
Yes, that's the one. I knew it was something like that.
Yeah.
We exhibited at that now in the first year, but that only ran for. That was one of the things that delayed us as well going ahead, because we didn't want to step on anybody's toes with that. But that only ran for a couple of years. So yeah, and again, quite a contained event. It was a one-day event in a smaller venue. So it just feels like the right place. Manchester is one of the most thriving places in Europe, and I'm not just saying that. That is, if you look at any of the metrics, Manchester is one of the regions that is growing in Europe. There's a lot of buzz about the city, and that's not just a bee pun. It just feels absolutely right that there is an event like this, and the people of Manchester and the North West have absolutely embraced the idea with a lot of enthusiasm, which is what we expected, because we know that Mancunians are lovely people.
We are indeed. Oh, fantastic. So for anybody who is interested in finding out more, whether they're somebody who wants to come along to experience it, whether they're small indie businesses that want to look into finding out how they can exhibit with you or whatever, how can they find you and TexStyle?
Yes, so we have a website, which is www.textile.uk. And we are on social media as well. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and they're linked from the website. So you can follow us. And on the website, there's all the information, the dates, the times, the location, how to get there, how to book. If you want to join us as an exhibitor, if you want to run a gallery, if you're a guild or a group that wants to display, all the information's on there.
That's wonderful, Michelle. Well, the best of luck with it. I can't wait to come and experience it for myself next year. And I hope the run up to it is incredibly smooth for you.
Fingers crossed. It all comes down to planning. That's all it is. You've just got to have lots of spreadsheets.
Well, it sounds like you know what you're doing, so it shouldn't be an issue at all for you. But I really appreciate your time, Michelle. Thanks for talking to me for the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Michelle Greaves from TexStyle there. My thanks to her for speaking to me for Making Stitches. I hope you enjoyed hearing about her journey and the vision behind this new and exciting celebration of textile art and craft. If you'd like to find out more about the Textile Festival, including how to visit, exhibit or get involved, you can head to textile.uk. That's texstyle.uk. And of course, I'll pop a link to that in the show notes. As always, thank you for listening to Making Stitches. If you enjoyed listening, please consider leaving a review on your podcast app or sharing it with someone who you think would enjoy listening to it too. And if you'd like to support my podcast making adventure further, you could buy me a virtual coffee on my Ko-fi page or visit the Making Stitches shop on Etsy. All the money collected that way will be reinvested in this podcast. I'll include links to both of those in the show notes too. Thanks again for listening. I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with more creative chat for you. Until then, take care and enjoy your crafting.